This surgery, from here to here, I'm cut open, where my breastbone was sawed open.
Her scars tell a story of a journey of trusting God.
And they took a tumor out.
And how prayer gave her the will to live. Mary Pappas is a 6-time cancer survivor and is grateful to be alive. Just 2 years after she and her husband Steve married, she was diagnosed with stage 3 thymoma, a rare cancer of the thymus gland. She was only 25. She and Steve remember when doctors gave them the diagnosis.
Yes, it is malignant, and it's stuck to your heart, it's stuck to this, it's stuck to that. It came out of its capsule, so those cells spilled into your chest cavity.
I did think, oh, am I going to be left alone already? This is what I prayed for. I prayed for someone to spend the rest of my life with, and this is how it's going to end up.
Doctors had to perform open chest surgery. Meanwhile, Mary's family and friends from her church had come to pray.
Later, I heard about prayer meetings where women and people were just weeping and moaning and crying out to God.
Doctors removed the tumor successfully. Mary went through 5 weeks of radiation treatments and was given a clean bill of health. But over the next several years, Mary would go through 2 more bouts of cancer. Medical treatment and prayer helped to pull her through.
I read everything possible. Everything I could read about healing, everything I could read about faith, anything I could find, I read it over and over and over.
During this time, they also started a family. In 1989, they had twin boys, Stephen and Michael. For the next 7 years, Mary enjoyed being a mother and living cancer-free.
I just thought that that was my last episode of ever having cancer again, and this was all behind me, and I'm just going to raise and adore my children.
I had a lot of hope that this would be maybe the final time.
But it wasn't. In 2003, a routine CAT scan showed a small mass on her liver.
I was 34, I have 2 little kids I love more than life itself. I am not dying.
Mary was admitted to the University of Pittsburgh Liver Cancer Center. Dr. James Marsh was the head surgeon. When he opened her up, he discovered a prosthetic from her previous surgery had attached to her liver.
Taking out the cancer in and of itself wasn't that difficult, but getting the liver off this prosthetic material was a disaster and a nightmare. And when we were doing that, her liver cracked open. So we had to take out much more of her liver than we had originally intended.
Doctors removed the cancer, but after the surgery, she started having seizures. Doctors induced a coma. Her condition worsened, and they put her on life support.
She had scans of her brain. She had spinal taps several times. We consulted neurology. We consulted everyone, and we couldn't find what was wrong with her.
For 2 weeks, Mary remained in the coma. Stephen and Michael were teenagers when they saw their mother in the hospital.
She just had the feeding tube in there, and then she had just all these wires attached to her, and it was just really shocking. I've never seen anything like that.
I remember walking back to the waiting room, and there were, friends and family and people that are there for support, and a lot of people just had tears in their eyes or their heads were down.
Steve visited her every day. On one of those days, the doctor told Steve that his wife might not make it.
He said, I don't think you should leave tonight. I said, that's fine, I won't. And I could tell in his voice and the way he approached me that it was getting a little emotional. How do I explain that to my kids?
Their church held a special prayer service. Their pastor, David Thomas of Victory Christian Center in Youngstown, Ohio, stood in for Mary.
People laid hands upon me, and a roar went up of just intensity. We spoke life and decreed life.
2 weeks later, Mary woke up.
My liver surgeon comes busting through and said, "The resurrection," is what he said, because, I was on complete life support.
I just kind of felt like it was like the Lazarus story, just come out of the tomb, you know what I mean, and just
Raised from the
come
dead.
forth, and it was just I remember she turned to me, she said, "Praise God." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, praise God."
Mary started rehab to learn how to walk again. In 1 month, she was able to go home to be with her family.
We're all together, and God had brought us through a phenomenal time, and it left just an imprint on our hearts.
Mary beat cancer 2 more times in 2008 and in 2009. Since then, she's been cancer-free.
She's an amazing patient. And I think her faith and her courage, probably the most outstanding thing. Yes, I would definitely call her recovery miraculous.
Mary now helps other cancer patients battle cancer. Mary has written a book about her journey of healing and shares her testimony at women's conferences. She and her family know prayer and faith in God is the key to overcoming any obstacle in life.
We've learned about the character of God through this, and this whole thing is a miracle.
I believe and I know that God will reach down into your situation and will make himself so real and so known that you will know for sure he is in control.